Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Leading Ladies podcast, where we have amazing conversations with amazing women. And today's conversation is no different because we have a phenomenal woman doing great things in the community. I want you to introduce yourself and what it is that you do.
Oh my, that's a lot. So I'm Carla Thompson, and I refer to myself as an educator, but I do that for crime victim services, where I teach about healthy relationships. I, in a way, do that for Mercy Health as well now, where I work in the neighborhoods, teaching people about the resources that are available to them and trying to help them connect with those resources in a useful way. And then I'm also on city council, and that is a whole teaching and learning experience. So a big civics lesson that I'm trying to share with other people.
And you're also president of the neighborhood association.
Yeah. I actually just stepped down.
Oh, really?
Now my husband is.
Okay, good. Well, you still got to say and kind of how everything is going.
Yeah.
That's good. So before we get into the meat of what it is that you're doing between City Council and Crime Victim Services, I want to really get to know who you are as Carla Thompson, just the woman, just the being. Before all of the... Come on now. Let's go.
All right.
So who is Carla? What do you love to do? What do you love to read, watch? What makes you feel fulfilled?
Love to do. I like to write and perform poetry. Mm-hmm. I like to sing. I primarily sing jazz and blues.
Really?
And gospel when appropriate. Mm-hmm. That's what brings me a lot of joy. I also... nature. Mm-hmm. An urban hippie.
Okay, so you walk barefoot?
I like to walk barefoot. I perform barefoot. I do hug trees. I go on like crazy hikes. Yeah.
So what's the psychology between about hugging the trees? What is that? Because I hear a lot of people that do it, but I didn't really understand why.
I mean, trees are alive, and they possess a lot of wisdom within them.
Okay.
I think that we kind of don't realize exactly how amazing trees are. Trees talk to each other. They network with each other through their root system and through the fungal system. Mm-hmm. When a tree needs help, they reach out, and actually the other trees around it support it, like sending other nutrients to it. Yeah. And that is a strength and a wisdom and a peace that is nice to just align yourself with sometimes. Yeah. And so I just like to thank a tree and get close to a tree and get close to that energy sometimes.
Yeah. And I feel that because I do feel like we should learn from nature, right? God's natural creation. Mm-hmm. And with women, a lot of times we don't reach out to that support in the same way a tree might to the surroundings. So why do you think that is that, we can understand how trees work, but we might not do the same thing for ourselves?
Because we're all kind of operating, I don't want to say all, a lot of us are operating from this deficit standpoint where we feel like we don't have enough for ourselves, so we're not willing to share or think about what we have to offer others. But when you think about it, people have accomplished nothing on their own. Mm-hmm. Like, we've only managed to do things and learn and grow as a species because we know how to collaborate. Yeah. And if we don't continue to do that, support each other and collaborate with each other, then the forest dies.
Yeah, that's good.
That's
good. So speaking of collaboration, what does your friendship circle look like? Do you have a solid support group within friendships, not necessarily colleagues, but friends?
I'm kind of growing that. So I do, in the sense that I came here almost a decade ago from Cleveland. Mm-hmm. And so I had a very solid group of friends that I was networked with there. And it's been a slower process moving into a town where literally we knew no one when we moved here. And so it's, seeing who's connected to who, seeing whose goals and values are aligned with your own. And so I do have a handful of what I consider very good people that I can turn to that I socialize with, I just don't spend enough time nurturing my friendships.
That's good. Yeah. That's a good point, because I think that's the same story for a lot of people. Yeah. We get active in all of the other working relationships that we have, but the friendships that actually help refuel us, is at the bottom of the list.
Exactly. Yeah. And they need to be at the top.
Yeah.
not the friendships that
definitely prioritize.
Or,
yeah. So what about your family life? You have children. How many children do you have?
I have 3. Mm-hmm. So I have a foster son who is 36, but very much my son. And so I've got grandkids and a daughter-in-law. And then I have a son who is 26 from my first marriage. And my husband and I have a 12-year-old.
Okay.
Yeah, all boys, and now they all are in Lima with me as well.
Yeah. So I want to talk to you about parenting.
Okay.
So we haven't gotten into everything that you have on your plate. Mm-hmm. In addition to being a parent of boys who have transitioned into teenage years, adulthood. Now, this is selfish conversation. This is just for me.
That's okay.
This isn't even for the audience. Because I have a teenage boy.
Yes.
And it is a struggle where sometimes I wonder, am I getting through to him? And it's a real, I don't want to say fear, because I'm trying to shift away from that word.
Right.
But if I'm honest, it's definitely a concern. Mm-hmm. As to whether or not I'm actually imparting what I know he needs to be a good man, good father, and good husband. Mm-hmm. Tell me about, as you were transitioning your boys, as your boys were growing, and you were, building everything that you built. How was that? Like, what was the biggest challenge for you?
Wow, the biggest challenge. Oh gosh. Well, just dealing with teenagers. The fact that, now I'm going through my third teenage episode. It can be challenging, and I think that this is boys and girls.
Yeah.
It is very challenging to see people you love struggle. Mm-hmm. But the fact is anybody going through puberty, anybody trying to find their way in this world, anybody having to deal with different types of oppression like young Black men do or young Black women do, they're going to be really going through it, And so it's hard to stand back and watch them like figure things out and struggle and not just jump in and protect them from everything.
How do you manage that though? Like as a mother, because it's easy. I would say it's not easy, but it's easier when maybe it's an extended person that you care about, and you're able to facilitate that gap of when I should jump in and when I should kind of just let them on their own. But as a mother, it's like, I know I'm supposed to allow them to fill out this journey.
Right.
Trust that I'm giving them the what they need to be able to properly move and grow. But as a mother, you want to jump in and be that savior. Like, how do you really control that?
I try to keep my conversations with my sons very honest. Mm-hmm. Like when I am frightened for them, I explain why. When I'm mad at them, I explain why. I don't lie about my own past.
I think that's an important piece.
I don't try to pretend like I grew up a saint, you know, and that they need to be saints. And I do that so that when they do need me, they know that they can tell me that. Mm-hmm. And so I do feel that my sons are all, even though they're all in different stages of their life, I feel that all of them feel comfortable coming to me when they know they want me or they know they need me. They feel like they can tell me the truth.
That's good.
Yeah. And I don't. Like, there's nothing that would ever make me remove them from my life. You know, they could come up with anything, and I'm just going to try and teach and treasure and nurture. Yeah.
Does it get easier as they grow? See, because you have adults and you have teenagers. Is it easier as they go into adulthood? And I'm asking just so I know when I can...
You know... my middle child has mental health struggles. He is, and the thing is, I mean, so do I. Mm-hmm. You know, like I don't want to say that as I don't consider that a negative. Mm-hmm. Like, we all have brains, we all have bodies. You got to take care of your physical body, you got to take care of your mental health as well. But there was one time about 3 years ago where I was, he got stuck in a ditch somewhere. And I was mad that he was stuck in the ditch. I was mad that he had been driving. I was mad because we were in a strange place and I was worried about, oh Lord, what are these white people around here going to do to him? And so I'm like driving out to go get him and everything, fussing and cussing. And when we get back to where we were staying, he grabbed me and he was like, Mom, stop treating me like a child instead of the broken adult that I am. And what do you say to that?
Yeah.
Because that tells me that he is incredibly self-aware, that he has thought about who he is and what he needs. And he didn't need me to mommy him.
Yeah.
He needed another adult to talk to him about how to make the right accommodations to live in this world the way he is. And if I'm really going to be a mom, then that's what I have to do.
Yeah.
Is meet his actual needs, not what I think he needs.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. I really want to touch on the comment that he made, though, about being a broken adult.
Yeah.
How did that make you feel? Yeah.
Ooh, pretty shitty.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was a whole nother conversation about disability and what that looks like and how you handle disability. My husband is a great help in that conversation because he's blind and because he's low vision. He was fortunate enough to have a mother who was like, okay, you're low vision, let's go figure out how to do everything anyway. And she did. And that's the angle that we come from is, okay, there are some things that you're not going to be able to do because of whatever your disability is. There are many things that you can do, but you need accommodations. And because you have a disability in this world, that makes you a marginalized person. So you're going to have to work twice as hard to be seen as equal for anything. And that's how we operate now. So it's not, oh, well, I need to baby him because of this, or he can't do this because of this, or, it's what do we need in place so that you feel confident doing the things you want to do?
Yeah, for sure. And you know what that makes me think of? It reminds me of a movie.
Okay.
Ray. Have you ever seen Ray? It's the movie of
like
Ray
Charles?
Yes. When he lost his vision.
Everybody in my family has seen it
except girl, you know what? We gotta do like a day or something.
I need a few
and
movies.
We gotta watch it. We can binge watch movies.
Okay.
I love movies.
Okay.
So that is a part of my recharge time. I watch movies that are completely unrelated to a struggle. Because when I am watching movies, it's like documentaries, something that I'm learning, something educational. But sometimes I just have to watch a movie that's just has nothing. But because of the way I'm wired, I take nuggets from everything. It's just the way we're wired. But there's a scene in the movie where after Ray has lost his vision as a child and his mother was like just helping him, holding him, carrying him through everything, there was a moment where he came in the house and he fell. And she almost went to grab him to help him up. But instead she realized that she had to allow him to find his way. So she was silent. She didn't even say anything or let him know that she was there.
Okay.
She just watched him and almost in tears because she wanted to help him. But eventually his other senses started to heighten and he found his way. And he said, I can hear you, Mom. And she just fell into tears. But that was a lesson exactly about what we're talking about now. It's like being a parent and understanding when to really just allow your child to demonstrate what you've already taught them.
Exactly.
And it is hard.
It's so hard.
It's necessary.
Yep.
That is our responsibility as parents. Yeah. So you mentioned that your husband is also blind.
Yes.
Or visually impaired.
Yep.
First of all, how did you guys get together? Was he visually impaired when you guys got together?
Yeah, he was born with his conditions.
Okay. Okay. So how does that relationship become? How's the courting? What is that like?
Well, we were actually teaching together at the same high school. Yeah, and we were both English teachers, and I was the chair of the English department when he came on board. And the students told me that he also did poetry and that I should go talk to him. And
so they were the matchmakers.
Well, they were just like, you guys both do this thing. You should talk to each other. Okay. So we talked, and he was an ass.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like, y'all can keep Mr. King. I don't even know why y'all wanted me to talk to that man, because he totally blew me off. And later on, okay, so this made me feel real good. He said that he knew me, and he just never thought that he thought I was just like above him. Yeah, he was like, I liked you then. I just thought you would never give me the time of day, like totally out of my league.
Why?
And I was like,
oh.
And then I found out that he couldn't see, and I told him that that's okay, because that means I just look good every day.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
I said, I don't care what anybody else in here tells you, I look good every day.
Wow.
So he was like, got it. You're hot. All right, check.
So he is self-sufficient.
Oh yeah.
With that. Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I want to shift a little bit into the role that you play in the community with City Council, with Crime Victim Services, and all of the other things. So let's start with Crime Victim Services, because I know that's a big part of what it is that you do. Explain that, like the people that you work with and the role that you play.
Sure. So Crime Victim Services has been around a little over 40 years now. It's kind of unique in the sense that victim services are usually tied to a police department or the court in most areas. And I think there's only one other program like ours in the country where the victim service agency is separate from those. So we are our own nonprofit. And most of the people that I work with are advocates. And so they do what the title says. After you've been the victim of a crime, you're eligible for our services. And most of those services are free. And you think of a type of crime that could happen, and they probably have a program for it. And then there's my little team are the only people that basically do something different besides the administrative staff. We're the prevention team, and so we're primarily educators, and we go out into the community, the elementaries, junior highs, high schools all over Allen and Putnam County. We work in the colleges. I go to businesses. I've taught at municipal court, you name it. And I teach usually about healthy relationships. Okay. And consent, and what unhealthy looks like and how to avoid it. And also what to do if things go all bad. Yeah. And so it's kind of a beautiful thing to teach because everything that I teach, I'm primarily looking at romantic relationships, but it also applies to your friendships and your family relationships, all of it. Yeah. And so my job is trying to reduce sexual violence and relationship violence.
Do you see more of that type of crime happening with Crime Victim Services? Because I know you say it's a lot of different crime victims that have been subject to different kinds of crimes, but do you see more sexual assault than others?
What I see is how all of it is connected. And so I don't like to say things without having statistics in front of me, but I know that domestic violence, intimate partner violence, and sexual violence are pervasive, and our community is no exception, that it's vastly underreported. Yeah. And also not usually prioritized by communities as something that needs to be corrected.
Why do you think it's underreported?
Because we as humans don't like to tell when things have happened to us. Women usually don't tell because they're afraid of retaliation or of not being believed. And those are often valid fears. And then men often don't tell because they feel like if they experience some sort of relationship violence or assault, then that makes them less of a man. Yeah. And which unfortunately makes them perfect prey. Yeah. Like men are sexually assaulted, 1 in 6 men will experience it. And they do not want to talk about it. Yeah. But if we can actually get people to talk about it, then we can actually do something about it. If we reduce the stigma of acting like the victims are always at fault. First of all, victims are never at fault.
Right. Right.
Just never. There's never a time when they're at fault. And that leads to some interesting conversations when I say that sometimes. But
that's good though. It's a conversation starter.
Yeah.
And we need to start the conversation and start to change the conversation.
And the good thing is it's a crime that can be completely eliminated.
Well, do you think that some of the reasons that it's underreported is also because maybe the victim wants to protect the predator?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of reasons. Wanting to protect the predator, often because they might be somebody you're dating. You might care about that person and not want them to come to harm, either through parents or police or whatever. Because we often do care about the person who harms us. And unfortunately, most sexual assaults do occur from people that we know.
Yeah.
So it's a sticky, tricky thing because we don't have clear examples of what healthy love looks like, what healthy relationships look like. Right now, what we have are a lot of examples of drama, and nobody telling people that drama is not real life.
And that becomes the norm.
Yeah,
that becomes the norm.
Yeah.
You know, I've experienced, sexual assault as a child, and all of my friends, I can't think of one of them who also don't share that experience.
And that's what I mean.
And it's really sad.
Yeah, because we say 1 in 4 for women. But I'm like you. I rarely come across a woman who has it.
Because it was never reported. I mean, it took years for me to even say it happened.
Right.
You know? So, and again, every woman that I know in my close friend circle has experienced it.
Yep.
You know?
Same here.
And I saw a post, this was a while ago, but it said, it's funny how we can know at least one woman who's been sexually assaulted, but we don't know not one predator. Right? It's like, who just walks around and admits that, you know, they've done that, but they're all around us.
Yep.
So if there's 5 women in a room and you say what's the stat on that?
1 in 4.
1 in 4 of these women have been sexually assaulted. What does that mean in a room full of 4 men or women that 1 in 4 could also be a predator? You know? And it just makes you start to question people and motives as you're building relationships. You know, I have become very, I would say, like strict or cutthroat when it comes to my interaction with men.
Okay.
Because I'm looking for the motive. And sometimes, and I'm like, I was buying that wine yesterday, and the guy, he said, "What kind of wine is that?" I said, "My wine." And
that's the brand.
You know, and maybe that is just from some of that trauma from experiences. Because as I have let certain men in, even as an adult, you know, here they come with their, you know, past, or they want to get fresh, and it's like, you know what, I don't even have time for it. You know, and that's a real experience that, again, I have and a lot of other people have. So
now, one thing is, it's not that like every other person we see is a predator. Often predators, sometimes they don't know they are when it comes to relationship violence. And then also, they don't hurt just one person.
Yeah.
So like if you've got a serial rapist, there's a chance, most likely, I think the stats are like they've committed at least 7 of those before they're going to get caught on average. You know, so you might have a group that have experienced this, but only 1 or 2 predators, you know.
Yeah.
It's if we're like making tally marks.
Yeah.
So it's not that everybody that we run into, but it is that everybody kind of expects relationships to have drama, or expects people to fight. They just don't understand what love and healthy conflict look like.
Yeah. Healthy conflict, that's a big one.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
That needs to be pushed out more.
Yeah. Well, like when I tell people I don't fight with my husband, they're like, "What?" I'm like, "No, 15 years and we haven't fought." Now, have we had disagreements?
Okay.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yep.
Do we have healthy conflict?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
But there's no screaming. There's no "I'm right." You know, there's an issue. In healthy conflict, there's an issue. And you and I as partners are going to try to resolve this issue. Not, I need to be right and you need to be wrong. Like, because nobody wins in that.
Yeah.
At least your relationship doesn't.
Yeah. You know, and before we move on, I want to ask you, with dealing with all the victims that you see, how does that impart on you emotionally?
A lot of the people that I work with, we do a lot of work around vicarious trauma. And so anybody that has to be a witness to somebody else's trauma, either family members or helpers, it weighs on you, you know, and so you have to find outlets. My first year was really rough, you know, and I had to work through some things. And I know that the person before me, actually, the vicarious trauma, she just realized she couldn't do the job, you know, and that's okay. It's not for everybody, but there has to be a lot of time made for nurturing your soul, protecting it, talking with others in the field just for peace and solidarity and community. You know, you have to make sure you're doing that. And knowing, I'm fortunate that I'm on the prevention end of it. So I don't deal with as many victims. I do deal with a lot of students who disclose, because once you start talking about it and normalizing it, people will actually start telling you things. And so that is where my heart ends up aching. But knowing that they felt good enough to tell somebody, safe enough to tell somebody, that's part of a healing process. For sure. So they've started. And that makes me feel good. And then I also know that I've done it long enough, I can find them good resources to move on to the next step. Gotcha.
So I love it. And so, well, let's get on to city council.
Sure.
Yeah, because there's so many other questions I have about the crime victim services and the work that you do.
Girl,
and
you know, I'll just talk. So.
And I will too. Listen, because we spent an hour in the store the other day. A random conversation just in the store, an hour, you know. So yeah, but I do want to move on to also your role as city council.
Okay.
How did you end up in that seat? And how long have you been in the seat?
I'm in year 6 now.
Okay.
Yeah. So a term and a half, I guess. Working on a term and a half. So I'm 3rd Ward City Council representative, and somebody at my church actually called me, and this was after the 2016 presidential election, and after that election, I kind of decided that we were at a critical point. If people hadn't realized it yet, maybe they needed to wake up and realize it, and that you needed to pick a cause or two and run with it. Yeah. You know, like figure out what's important to you and really go out there and advocate, because it's time. And so then when this church member called and was like, so have you thought about running for city council? And I'm like, no, no, I have not. And it was one of those things where I have previously tried to do things based on ego. You know, even when I didn't realize it, it was my ego. Like I wanted to be in charge of something or say that I had a certain title. And so I had to, it was flattering to be asked, but I had to really step back and think about if that was where I wanted to go. And if I did, is it because I wanted to be able to say I was a city council person, or because I had something that was needed for the role? Yeah. And so I can just be real honest, right? Yeah. Okay. So I was running against Councilor Lowe, and I decided to go ahead and do that race primarily just because I'm learning about him and what he was fighting for and things like that. I didn't disagree, but I did think that, and even just talking to him, it felt like he was at a place where it was all fight. And because it was all fight, nothing was really getting accomplished. You know, and what I was hoping was that maybe some of my conflict resolution skills and education skills would be better at getting some things done.
Yeah.
You know? And so just wanted to say that because there's no disrespect for people trying to help their community, you know? And I just so happened to get enough votes.
Yeah.
And I went to my council of neighbors that I actually respected and cared about. Those are the people that have, when you ask about a friend group, 700 Block of Bryce, I call them my 700 Club.
Okay.
Because my neighbors there really had us from literally day one when we moved in. And they were my campaign team and my should I even run team.
That's good.
And
That's good. Finding resource and people and that's closest to you.
Yes.
So you kind of went out on a whim and ran, but now you've been in the seat for 6 years. What's kept you there?
I was really, there's one of the things that I ran on was the idea that we needed a landlord registry. And I'm not leaving until that's done.
Okay.
Because I have I know most people have heard the saying, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, you've had several decades of absolute power for the landlords. And what that means is that you have some good ones. And God bless them, but they don't own enough of the properties, you know?
Yeah.
And it's been kind of like the wild, wild west out here. And it's part of the reason why our housing stock has gone to crap.
Yeah.
It's the reason why people can't find a Section 8 place to rent. It's the reason why you can't find a place to rent and you can barely find a home to buy, you know? And it's a good reason why our neighborhoods, when we have such a high rental rate and nobody's doing the work to maintain the homes, you know.
So do you see some forward progression happening?
I do.
You do? Okay.
The reason why I wanted to stay on for the second term was I was encouraged by Mayor Smith's election. In a town like this, if they can see their way to elect a Black woman, then that encourages me that there is hope for growth.
That's good. Yeah.
You know, because that's something that's never happened here before, a female nor a Black person.
Yeah.
So we got a twofer there.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be a part of that to see what could happen, what kind of progress, what kind of growth. But then I'll probably be done.
Now, so the city council role, I mean, anybody who's never sat in that role, just looking and observing would just really assume that it's a lot of stress and a lot of pressure, a lot of responsibility. And actually being in that role, I'm sure it's a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, and a lot of responsibility. How have you managed now? We already talked about your family, your children, your husband, your full-time job, right, with crime victim services, and now what you do just as a community server and leader in city council. How do you manage all of those pressures?
Well, to be honest, I don't always manage them well, and I'm still learning. Like it's a process. I've told you before that I have ADHD. Unfortunately, that was something that wasn't diagnosed until after I was on council. And it explains a lot of my struggles my whole life. And so some of the things.
What is ADHD?
Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder.
So what exactly does that mean?
So for me, they used to have different diagnoses like ADD, just attention deficit, but now they've kind of put them all under that ADHD umbrella. And I would be classified as having the inattentive type. Okay. And so women often are not diagnosed because we present differently. And we also often most correctly self-diagnose. Go figure. Yeah. Because, you know, in school, it's the people who cause problems. People want to say, okay, why are they causing the problem? And so they get help, right? And that's boys who are usually acting out because they usually display the hyperactivity, right? Girls, we go inward. It's safer. Yeah. And so, you know, and then I also had the misfortune of being, they call it twice exceptional. So I was gifted, but had ADHD. Okay. And what that looked like was I was successful up until the end of grade school. And then people just thought I was lazy because my strategies became not efficient. Okay. You know, like I would come home every day every single day with like a 40-pound book bag, thinking that that was going to be the day I was going to get caught up, and it never happened. You know, because I didn't even know how to start.
So with the ADHD, does that keep you from executing and being effective? Or because I guess the way I kind of processed it was that means you can't focus on one thing at a time. You want to do a lot of stuff.
Which is part of the reason why my plate is too full.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then also, I feel like I'm slowly getting better, but like one of my struggles has been making sure that I'm communicating with my constituents in a timely fashion, you know, because their problems for them are very real and very urgent. And they don't realize that I might have had like literally 20 calls that day.
Right. Absolutely. You know? Absolutely.
But that doesn't excuse that they need a response, you know? And so I'm still working on ways of making sure that my communication is more consistent and efficient, but I'm getting more tools and it is becoming better.
And I like that because I feel like ADHD or not, or whether or not you've been diagnosed with it, a lot of women specifically have so many different things on their plate. Yep. And they're trying to manage it all. They're trying to juggle it all. They're trying to find that nasty
trying to be superwoman.
Yeah, it's all of these different things. And I think that a system is what's needed, or a routine is what's needed to be able to effectively execute. So you already kind of mentioned that you have a system with your constituents. What other systems do you have in place to manage that? City council, crime victim services, parenting, just the entire plate. Mercy Health. We didn't even get into that, but yeah, like what systems do you have in place to manage it all?
I went through and played around with several different to-do list apps because Post-it notes were not working for me. I have many Post-it notes and they are in several locations, but to actually get things done, I needed a way of documenting what I needed to do and organizing it that worked with my brain. And I did finally find a task list app that works very well for somebody with ADHD.
What app is it?
It is TickTick.
TickTick, okay.
TickTick, yeah, it's great because it's as robust or as simple as you need it to be.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And then I am telling myself every day. So there's a lot of personal things that I needed to put in place. So every morning I write my affirmations, and one of them is always that I will practice being impeccable with my word. And so that means that I'm also being honest with myself and getting better at not overcommitting.
Good.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
So not just saying I will do this thing because I like doing that thing, or because I want to do that thing, or because I want to be Captain Save Everybody.
Yeah.
You know, it's not necessarily my job to save everybody. So I'm learning to delegate, to say no, and to not make promises that I can't keep.
Well, it's like you already mentioned it, kind of ego, knowing when this is ego, my ego showing up, and I have FOMO and I don't want to miss out and I want to be the one that's a part of this project, or is this actually in alignment with the mission?
Exactly.
And being able to ask yourself those questions every day, all day, making sure every decision that you make is in alignment with the overall mission. And you also mentioned something earlier that I wanted to piggyback on, but you said that, you know, as human beings, we all have some level of mental disorder. We're fragile.
Yeah.
Human beings are very, very fragile.
Yep.
So, you know, for me, I struggle sometimes with the word mental illness because I think it's overly used, and some people who may not have an illness may just be in disorder phase. You know what I mean? And again, I think there's just some misinterpreting around that. So you may be struggling with anxiety, depression, not understanding that that's a disorder. And, you know, in a more critical end of the spectrum, it becomes an illness, right? Depending on what end of the spectrum you are. But people don't want to talk about that openly. And I've talked about, I experienced depression. I came out of depression. I didn't stay in it. It wasn't now a tag on me. It was something that I was able to move through. Some people struggle a little bit more with it. Right? But I do think that understanding that as human beings, we are all fragile. And we have so many different things going on within us. And sometimes it's that internal conflict that then shows up in a disorder of emotions and thoughts and all of that stuff. Now, you also said something to me when we had that conversation in the grocery store last week.
Okay.
You said something to me. Oh my gosh. And I'm going to try to remember it.
Okay.
But it was so impactful. We were talking about the different groups of people that we engage with.
Yes.
What did you say? You said, I'm going to remember.
Okay, good.
You said that the challenge is tailoring the message for the different groups of people.
Yes.
And how sometimes that's overwhelming. And after I left, I'm just thinking through that. I think I thought about that piece all day.
Because we're talking about DEI stuff?
Yeah, we were talking about DEI. We were talking about a lot of different stuff. You know, DEI, life, just being a figure.
Right.
And having so many different people in connection with us. And my challenge is not wanting to offend someone.
Right.
Right? So tailoring the message in a way that is suitable for all of these different individuals that we engage with.
Right.
So it was so impactful when you said it. It was just like fire. But when I left, I started to like break it down. And I said, okay, but also a mature communicator understands that you have to tailor the message, right? Like I can't say the same thing. I can give the same message to my husband and my son, but I have to tailor it for both of them so that they can actually receive it.
Right.
But I think the challenge then comes with, in tailoring the message, do I also feel inauthentic?
Right.
Because I'm missing things that I know are valuable to the message that I want to put out, but it may be offensive to that audience. You know,
there are times when the truth is just gonna hurt. And it needs to. And we should not shy away from that. But that also requires some careful consideration as to, will this pain cause growth or will it cause more pain? You know, when they hear that message, is it going to be they shut it out or they do something even worse, or will it be okay, you know, what do I do with this? And I'm processing. I used to teach about code switching, and you know, it used to be that was just a thing that you needed to do. You know, if you got to talk and act a certain way in different areas so that you can be heard. And then we kind of get to a point where people are like, okay, but should I have to code switch? You know, can I just be me? You know, blah, blah, blah. And what I think is that there is a way to be yourself and still speak to the audience that you want to speak to.
If you can give me 1 or 2 tips on how to be yourself and tailor the message to that audience.
It does require some thought where you think about what is it. You have to think about the language that group speaks. So when I was doing a DEI training for judges in the area in the court, I could walk in and just say, look, we are incarcerating way too many Black people.
Period.
And stuff's got to change.
Yes.
You guys are racist and we need to do something about it. And if I walk in the room and say, you guys are racist, everybody's going to shut me down.
Yeah.
There is no more training happening after that. Right. So I have to speak their language, and their language is justice.
Okay.
Their language is law.
That's good.
Their language is, you know, retribution, all that kind of stuff. And so I have to talk about where the justice is in DEI, where it's currently lacking. And, you know, I pulled in materials that are DEI related, but from Stanford School of Law. You know, so I'm going to give material specific to you so that you see my message. My message didn't change.
Exactly.
Just the language that I was using to convey my message changed a bit.
Good. Yeah.
You know, and because I had a judge tell me, well, you know, justice is blind. You know, when they come in here, we're not supposed to see color and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, my response to that is, again, we make up 12% of Allen County. the Allen County Juvenile Detention Center is meant for Allen County youth. We make up 90% or more at any given time of the population in there. Mm-hmm. Justice is not blind.
Yeah.
It's not.
That's good.
And we have to just recognize that we all have biases.
Yeah.
And it's okay. Now, what are we going to do about it?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the beginning of the healing process.
Yeah.
When we can become self-aware and acknowledge my own bias.
Yeah.
That I may be biased in this moment, and let me challenge myself to see clearer or ask questions, and then I can actually be a part of moving this community forward.
Right.
Yeah, so I love that. So we're going to get ready to wrap up. How much time you got?
I got the time that you need.
Because we got one more thing for you to do. We're going to wrap up this episode.
Okay.
And then I just need you to stick around for a little bit. Before we go, though, I want you to give an encouraging word to the woman listening. I want you to give the women, to the women that are listening, I want you to give them an encouraging word. Maybe they are feeling overwhelmed. They're feeling like their plate is full. They feel like they want to give up. Maybe they feel like they're failing in parenthood, in their community. Or maybe they feel like they're doing great, but they just don't really know the next step. Just if you can give them an encouraging word to just keep moving, keep trying.
Okay, well, that's it. But one of the things that I was telling the students at North yesterday was, because I just realized this through some of my reading and just talking with others, we are our experiences and our stories and our past in this given moment. But everything forward is nothing but pure potential, which means I don't have to be whatever label I've given myself unless I want to. Mm-hmm. So knowing, woman, take your power back.
I love it.
Take it back. Every morning, you have the power to pick and choose and create your day. And I have to remind myself of that. Like when I'm feeling overwhelmed, who put that schedule together?
Yeah.
When I'm like worried about a project, who took it on? Right? Mm-hmm. So I have the power to pick and choose and create the day and the person that I'm going to show up as every single day. Every day is pure potential. And so whatever has happened, I don't need to do anything but let that inform me. I don't need to let that be me. Yeah.
I love it.
So yeah, I would say remembering that and remembering that you are as much worth protecting, loving, advocating for, nourishing and nurturing as anybody else.
I love it.
As anybody else.
Yeah. I love it. We can't close it out any better than that. Thank you so much, Carla. I truly appreciate you.
You're so welcome. Thank you for letting me be interviewed my socks.
And your socks, I don't know if we even got it in the camera, but they're definitely a part of the show. All right. All right, ladies. Okay. So listen, I want you to like and subscribe to this podcast. This has been another amazing episode. So if you want to continue to tap in with more amazing women like Carla, as a matter of fact, how can they reach you? If anybody want to connect with you, how can they reach you?
Well, my phone number is public record, so it's 419-516-1273.
Okay, there we have it. So listen, in the meantime, until the next episode, continue to learn, continue to grow, and always lead with love. And these are Carla Thompson's 3 top tips for leading ladies.
So I would say my first tip for being successfully yourself and a dynamic woman would be making sure that you have a calendar system, planner system that works for you, whether that be digital or paper or both, because some people need both, like me. But make sure that you have something that you're checking and writing so that you know where you're supposed to be and when you're supposed to be there. 2, make sure that you're not taking on projects or jobs or anything that's not aligned with your values and beliefs, unless you just need to make sure that you're taking care of your peoples. I understand that. And in that case, make sure that you're still nurturing your spirit and your soul by learning hobbies or whatever that take care of you. And then third, always remember that as much as you pour into other people, you are worth being poured into. And don't be afraid to pour into yourself.